Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. So we will continue with this chapter from Hazur's book, Revelation, Rationality, Knowledge of Truth, which is covering the prophecies from the Holy Quran. And this is pages 606 to 610, and it Hazur completes that. And just to sort of put into context where we were, I just read what Hazur says before the last part, which we already went through in last class. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Based on the direct messages contained in many of Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, there's some problem here. I think I may have, by accident, I pressed the wrong button, but I'm back now. Okay, so as I was saying, that Antichrist stands for Dajjal and Dajjal stands for Antichrist. So Hazur says then, but it should be clarified at the outset that his image as it arises from the traditions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ is not in reality a freakish as might appear on the surface. It refers to the Antichrist in a manner that seems to combine in him the power and might of immensely powerful nations. In fact, the entire age of the latter days is mentioned by the Holy Prophet ﷺ as the age of the Antichrist. All signs of the age are mentioned with reference to him. Among the signs which assist his identification is a category devoted specifically to the new modes of travel of which man had no experience before. So this is the main thing, which Hazur is trying to highlight of how we can identify the age of the Antichrist or the age of the Dajjal. We can identify it by this one striking sign, which is the change of modes of transportation. And that is what in the end Hazur is going to explain, where the hadiths, they explain in quite detail about that different modes of transportation, and where it sort of brings along what the Holy Quran has been saying and predicting, but the detail leaves one without any where to anywhere else to go but to realize that yes, this is the time, talking about the modern day transportation. So going on, Hazur says that a detailed account of what the Antichrist would be and how he would dominate the world leaves no shadow of doubt in the mind of any unbiased reader. That is not a single person to whom these prophecies refer. So it's not about one person, but it's a group of people. The term Antichrist, as used by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, is only symbolic. He would be a symbol of the mighty powers of his age, and his exploits would in fact be the exploits of many highly advanced and powerful Christian nations of the world. But their supremacy would not last forever. The ultimate downfall of the Antichrist, who symbolizes them, is also predicted in no uncertain terms. From the ruins of materialism would rise once again the sun of Islam, unveiling its radiant beauty as it casts away the covers of doubt and suspicion which had enwrapped it for many a dismal century. Now, Hazur says, now we take up the discussion of the revolutionary mode of travel once again, but this time we refer to the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's like we are going now into the commentary of the Holy Quran by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As for the remaining signs of the Antichrist, particularly those which have religious significance, we shall discuss them separately at some greater length in another chapter. Modes of travel on land, sea, and air are all described without exception in a manner that fully endorses the interpretation of many a Quranic verse, which we have presented earlier. Even the issue of movement of mountains is explained so that the memory of the relevant verses is effortlessly resurrected. The Holy Prophet ﷺ's elaboration of the Antichrist and the unique donkey he would ride must have seemed extremely odd to the people of his time. It had to appear odd because despite the fact that he continually refers to that mount as a donkey, none of the known characteristics of a donkey are described to that oddity. However, all the modern modes of transportation answer to this description perfectly. So in the hadith, the donkey's description doesn't have any description like an actual donkey. It actually has a description like the modern day modes of transportation, and then we're going to see what those are as Hazur highlights them one by one. And he says that they have one common feature about them. They are all propelled by combustion engines drawing their energy from fire. Even the external combustion engines, like those of locomotives, driven by steam, are dependent on fire. This is the sharp separation line between the earlier modes of animal transport and the revolutionary new modes of transport in the age of the Antichrist, which would reveal him to be not an animal, but an inanimate object. So a non-living object, a machine, basically. There will be machines. They won't be animals, but they will seem like they are animals. They will do what animals do. Even nowadays, I don't know the word for those machines, but we if we do a search on YouTube, I just saw recently the review of one of those machines, which like a robot, which has 4 legs, and it moves just like a dog, and it moves around, and it scans and understands its surrounding, but it's a machine. It's meaning it's an inanimate object, doesn't have a life. It's just a computerized mechanism that moves around and looks like an animal, but it's not. Anyhow, Hazur says we refer to him as he only because in the prophecy he is literally spoken of as an animal. In fact, he could be identified by this distinctive mark alone. Recognize the donkey of the Antichrist, and you will recognize in him the modern modes of transport. Fail to recognize him, if you so choose, and travel back to the age of donkeys. So if you can't recognize him, then you will just, as we were saying, you'll just start. You'll have to go into the past and just try to look at what donkeys look like and what their features are, but you'll never ever be able to figure out what the Antichrist or what the Dajjal is when you do that. But when you look at what Hazur is pointing out here, their characteristics as the modern modes of transportation, then it's obvious. Hazur says that some other novel features of this symbolic donkey of the Antichrist are described in great detail in various books of traditions. The following is a composite presentation of the information derived from them. So each of these points, which Hazur is giving, these descriptions, he gives at the end of this chapter also the references to it. But I'm just, for way of going over them, I'm just going to just go through the points, not the reference. First, he says that number one, these are from the Hadith. Like his donkey, the Antichrist or Dajjal himself would be so massive and gigantic that a monster like unto him has not even been heard of in the most bizarre tales of fantasy. He would be so tall that his head would seem to disappear beyond the clouds. He would be so immensely powerful that he would conquer the whole world single-handedly. Number two, despite all these physical advantages, the one blemish that he would be blighted with would be the total loss of one eye, the right eye for that matter. So the only real, disadvantage that he has, despite all of these physical advantages, he will not be able to see in one of his eyes, which is his right eye. And this is something which, we can discuss in detail about. This also has a very deep understanding in terms of dreams or symbology of not being able to see in the right eye, which means that this is a characteristic of the people of the Dajjal, the characteristic of these Western nations, that the spirituality in dreams, the right eye refers to spirituality, and having being able to have a strong left eye, a sight in the left eye, means that they have really deep knowledge of things of this earth, things of this world. So they understand the depths of science, or they use science to understand the creation of God. But that's all that they have the ability, is to understand these things, but they don't understand the actual spirituality, the spirituality, the things which are of a nature like the soul, and so on and so forth. But anyhow, that's a different topic at this point. Hazur is focusing on the transportation as a prophecy. And he says that number three, this donkey would not merely be a personal mount of the Antichrist, but would also be made freely available as a means of public transport. People will climb into his belly from the openings on his side, provided specifically for this purpose. So, I mean, this is very clear, when we get into plane and or any vehicle, then we get inside it from its side, and as it were, we're getting into its belly. And then number four says the belly will be well lighted within and equipped with comfortable seats. Number 5, the donkey would move at exceptionally fast speeds, covering long distances in a matter of days or hours, which ordinarily animal mounts take months to cover. Number 6, he would have regular stoppages on its way. At every stoppage, the public would be invited to come and be seated before he resumes his journey, and every departure would be loudly announced. Thus, the metaphorical donkey would continuously travel from place to place, providing people with a fast, convenient, and comfortable means of transport. Number 7, the passengers traveling in the valley would in no way be scorched by the fire. They would not feel the heat of the fire, they would not be burned by the fire. The fire which he had eaten, this indicates that the seating compartments in his belly would be fully insulated from the fire chamber. So the engine and everything which is used, the fuel and everything was used to run the engine would be a separate compartment, and this would not bother the passenger. That's the understanding of the traveler, the person in his belly not being burnt by the fire which it eats in its belly. Number 8, this donkey will also be able to travel by sea and move from continent to continent, riding the ocean waves. Number 9, during his journey by sea, he would somehow swell to a much larger size. Thus, he will be able to transport mountains of food upon his back across the oceans. Many a time he will be employed to deliver these enormous food supplies to such poor nations as abjectly bow to the will of the Antichrist. The transportation of mountain loads of food is a figurative expression reminiscent of the one contained in another previously quoted verse, which predicted such times when mountains will be made to move. So we covered some time back in the same chapter, and we went through it in one of our classes a week ago or so, that the Holy Quran mentions a time when that time predicted future when mountains would move, and Hazur said that this is an indication about the new modes of transportation, because there is no way that you can move huge amounts like weights of whatever they're transporting that is as heavy as mountains without a new modes of transportation. And the new boats which these vessels that carry these are the biggest means of transportation which carry these mountain loads of products. And here, the product which the Dajjal would be, which would be transported, would be food. And this prophecy mentions that those nations which will be subservient or that will follow the Dajjal, they will be given this food, these like as a means of their thanksgiving, for their subjugation or following them. They'll get these benefits from the Dajjal. And then number 10, the amazing donkey would also know how to fly, because some of the gigantic leaps are described to cover distances between east and west. It is said that one foot of the beast will be in the east and the other in the west. This is indicative of the size of the leap, meaning that he would take off from one continent and land to another. So this is clearly talking about the the airplanes. And when we we went through a verse also in the same chapter. It's from the Holy Quran about the future times, that there will be tracks in the earth. There'll be, there'll be like we have roads here. There are tracts of land where you go from place to place, but it talks about these tracks being in the earth. And now we know that there are tracks all over the sky, for aviation purposes, and all of the all of the planes run on those tracks. They follow their compasses, and they follow their computer systems, which follow that grid, which is in the sky, so to speak. But those are the tracks set up, which the planes follow. And then number 11, in the air he will move above the level of the clouds. So when he's in the air, he will be above the clouds. So this is this is fascinating, of how it's just clearly showing here that there's no other thing other than a plane that it's talking about here. And number 12, on his forehead he would carry the moon. Apparently the moon refers to the headlights which most modern vehicles are equipped with. The other interesting thing in Hadith, when I was reading also about the Antichrist and the coming of the Messiah in the latter days, and one of the references also mentioned there as well, that they will be able to change the weather, and the Dajjal will have the ability to change the weather. And nowadays, the contrails, which are the planes which fly in the sky, that make the long, they have the long trails behind them, which look like smoke, but in fact they are chemicals which are emitted in the air to create the rain. And this is something which is mentioned actually in the ability of the Dajjal to have. And the last, number 12, which Azur points out, it says that on his forehead he would carry the moon. Apparently the moon refers to the headlights which most modern vehicles are equipped with. And I think that if you see the original trains, they used to have one headlight on the front, like a moon. So, and obviously the moon is there at nighttime, so it can help you to see. So this description is only there just to tell the people at that time who didn't know, at least some way to recognize in the future what they were talking about. So then in the end, Hazur says that after reading this vivid description of the donkey of the Antichrist, which he would use for his world conquest, we wonder if the reader really needs further assistance to recognize him. Obviously, such great Christian powers are mentioned under the title Dajjal, as were destined one day to command the entire world. The fire-driven donkey, which acquires the changeable roles of aeroplanes, ships, or trains moving at exceptionally fast speeds, was to play the most formative and crucial role in the conquest of the world by the Christian powers. Apart from emphasizing the advantage of high speeds, the advantage of weightier possessions is also specifically mentioned in the global conflict for supremacy. And then he quotes in the Holy Quran, فَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُولَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَضِيَّةٍ. Then as for him whose scales are heavy, he will have a pleasant life. The weightier they are in their possession, and the faster in their speeds, the more inevitable would become the supremacy of the world powers. The mass and the speed at which he moves is what matters on the road to victory. These prophecies are so unique that it is hard to find their equal in the realm of divine prophecies elsewhere. The description is so vivid and precise that one has the impression that, like a painter who captures with his brush what he sees, the Holy Prophet ﷺ was molding into picturesque words what he observed unfolding before his eyes. With this, we bring to a close the discussion on the series of prophecies contained in the Surah Al-Takwir. Now we plan to present to the reader some other highly important prophecies which describe some other important features of the same age. Each of the following prophecies deals with a different specific topics. So, as Azur was saying in the beginning, as I was saying here in the beginning of today's class, that the rise of the Dajjal, the Western nations will come with their rise. They will have the ability to do that with their transportation means, and but they will be destroyed at some point. Their power will be destroyed, and Islam will come up. And so we are even seeing in our time, when we even think about the world, we could never think that this great powerful system which is in place can be so which is basically the travel industry, the stopping, the traveling, this whole travel industry which is set up. Canada was everyone, if they know their history, Canada was basically the power taken over power by the British, because they were able to build the railways. So this, the transportation system is such a powerful means of conquering the world. And we are seeing in this time of the pandemic of how much devastation in terms of the travel industry that there is, that no one could ever think that just for something unknown like coronavirus, that it could have such a devastating impact on that system. And but here Huzur was talking about how the Holy Prophet ﷺ in the Holy Quran was predicting that this whole mechanism of the Dajjal and its power structure and everything will come to an end, and then Islam will start on its rise. So there are different things that are happening to bring about that downfall, and we are seeing parts of that, with our own eyes. So, Jazakumullah, thanks to everyone for attending today's class. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.